Previously, we completed the implementation of chatting functionality and finally exchanged messages between users. In this video, we may not achieve much performance-wise or feature-wise, but I'm just going to try to make the code a little bit tidier and a little bit good looking. So let's get started. So we're going to start off by making some changes in the chat screen file. As you can see that we are extensively making use of this snapshot variable. We start off by passing it from over here and then receive it in the chat message item, then use it to compare the value present inside of the sender ID key and accordingly decide the message layout and alignment. Then finally use it in the getMessage function to retrieve the message in the message key and so on. Now, one question that you might ask is, what does this snapshot looks like? How are we putting all these values inside message key and sender ID key? Well, in Firebase, everything is done using JSON. You add the data using JSON and you retrieve that data using JSON as well. And in order to answer the previous question, let me just quickly show you how the whole message document looks like. So if you look at this, you can clearly observe all the keys and their values. So this data is what's sent back to us in the form of a JSON object. In case of Dart, we receive that as a variable of type map. Now we can use that map variable and map it into a message object. You might remember that we did the same thing inside of the fetch all users function. So right over here, we had a list of type user, and in order to retrieve a user from this query snapshot map, we used user.fromMap method. We've also defined a similar method inside of a message model. Although, if you notice, there's a bit of a difference in the way that we have declared the fromMap method in message class and in user class. In user class, we have used what's known as the named constructor. Now, named constructor are not Dart specific, but I think the architecture of declaring named constructor in this way is Dart specific. So in this way, we can declare multiple constructor of same class and make them do different things. If you go back to the message model, here we have declared the fromMap method as a member function. And it has a lot of redundancy. Here we are creating a message object once again and setting all the values and then finally returning the message object. In order to get rid of the redundancy, I would convert this method into a named constructor. So I'll just add a dot between message and fromMap, remove this message variable from here. I'll also remove the return statement. Then I'll replace all the message variables with the this keyword to refer to the member variables. In fact, we did the same thing at the time when we declared message.imageMessage. But to be honest, I didn't really know what it was called back then. Come back to the chat message item widget and we'll start the mapping process from here. Also, there's a big drawback of using this snapshot in the way that we are doing right now, because you can see that there are so many strings lying around, which is the worst thing you can do to your code. Always make sure that no such strings are lying around freely in your code. They should all be separated out in a different file. So suppose if you had to change the name of your collection, you can do that from one place and it would be reflected everywhere without breaking your app. Similarly, this also reduces the risk of typos, because if you make a typo over here, the IDE won't tell you what's going wrong. Although the compiler will show the error message, but what if that error message wasn't very user friendly? So you'll just keep on pulling your hairs and no solution would come up. Okay, so we'll start the mapping of the snapshot variable into a message object inside of the chat message item function. So at first I'll write message equal message dot fromMap, and here I'll write snapshot dot data, because snapshot dot data is essentially the map right here. So we are passing a map value to fromMap and getting back a message object. Now I can utilize this message object right over here. So I'll write message dot sender ID And over here as well, I'll write message dot sender ID. And we also need to replace it pretty much everywhere where we are using snapshot. So let me just tap here. So on the scroll bar on the right side, you can see all the places it highlights wherever I'm using document snapshot. So these are our targets and we need to replace them. Okay, so sender layout will now, instead of receiving a snapshot, it will rather receive a message object. There we go. And over here as well. Then I'll go to sender layout and write message. And finally, we'll have to pass this message to get message right over here. Okay, then for receiver layout as well, I'll write message, and here I'll write message. Great. So finally, the only place that is left is the get message method. So here I'll again write message, and finally, in order to receive a message, for the text, we'll simply write message dot message. You can also put some kind of check, although it won't be necessary, but you can do that. You can simply write message is not equal null, or else an empty message, although I don't think that would be necessary. I was just demonstrating that as a precautionary measure. Okay, now we have finally modeled everything. Now let me just show you if it has made any difference in our app. So I'll hot reload the app and we see that there is an error, and the error says that type timestamp is not a subtype of type field value. So what's happening here is if we go to send message function, in the timestamp, you can see that we have declared a value of type field value. And then we say repository.add message to DB, and then finally the message is added and the value timestamp is of type timestamp. But in our model, we have defined it as field value. So we are basically trying to model one type into another, such as a string into an integer, which is obviously not allowed. So I think there would be a better way to do it while modeling. I think we can specify that what sort of value we want. But the best way to deal with this, in my opinion, is to just go over here, go to timestamp, and here we are going to use the timestamp data type. So I'll write timestamp, and this comes from the Cloud Firestore library. Then I'll go back to chat screen, and there we can see that VS Code is angry and it says, hey, you are doing something wrong. So I'll remove this from over here and write timestamp dot now. This will essentially do the same thing, which means it will pass the current date and time to our Firebase database, but this time we'll not run into any problems while modeling the data. Okay, so now let's take a look. Although before taking a look, we would have to remove these values, which are, no, I don't think we'll have to remove these values. Let me just hot reload it once again, and there we go. Everything works fine. Now I can write as many messages as I want and it will all work fine. So now that we have successfully removed all the snapshot variables and replaced them with message, everything has gotten a bit more readable and the chances of breaking something by mistake are reduced as well. Now, like I said, you should not have strings lying around in your code. So going by the same principle, I'm going to create a new folder called constants and create a file called strings.dart. After that, I'll simply search for strings that are being heavily reused, such as a collection name, and put them all over here. So I've thoroughly checked in all the other files, such as chatlist screen, home screen, login screen, and we do not make use of any specific collection name inside of these screens. The only screen where we are using a collection name is right over here, which says firestore.instance collection messages. Now this is also basically a Firestore query, and therefore we should keep it inside of the Firebase methods.dart file, but it's fine. Even if you want to keep it right over here inside of your stream builder, that's fine as well. So what we'll do is I'll go over to constants inside of the string.dart and I'll write const string messages collection, and then I'll write messages. That's it. Then I'll come back to chat screen and replace this messages text with messages collection. Simple as that. Now, even this timestamp field since it is a string, it would be better if we keep it separated. So I'll write timestamp field, I'll write timestamp field. Then I'll go back to strings and I'll write const string timestamp field equal timestamp. Now maximum amount of collections are being used inside of the Firebase methods class. So over here I'll create another one called const string users collection and then write users. Okay, so now I'll go back to Firebase methods and replace all the users or the users string with users collection. There we go. Over here as well I'll write users collection, again users collection. Then over here inside of the add message to DB I'll write message collection and messages collection. There we go. So now you can see that how greatly does it reduces the risk of any typos or any sort of mistake. Similarly, if you wish, you can extract out this email field as well and write email field, then go back to strings, then write const string email field. So we have finally extracted out strings from our main code to separate file, and that way we can use them efficiently. Next up is a bug. So if you look at the app, if I send a message, the blue button goes away as it should, but the text in the message box still stays as it is. And it's pretty simple to solve that. In the chat screen, I'll go to send message function. Now send message is called when the send button is tapped, and we want the text to disappear right at this moment. So right after this set state, I'll write textfield controller.text and set it to empty string. Alright, I think that's about it. You can also see that there's a smiley icon on the right side of the text field, which is going to reveal a smiley container. In fact, I'm going to start off the next video with integrating smileys. Alright, so the source code and a track of all the things which were changed in the current video can be found in the description below. I hope you discovered some new terminologies and some new ways of doing specific things in Flutter. So leave your feedbacks about the video in the comments below, as I love reading them, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Alright, so I'll see you next week with a new video. Till then, bye bye.